Hi everyone, so welcome to our presentation. Here with you we have myself and my colleague Rocio. We're really looking forward to being with you all and spending this hour looking to see how we can best support undocumented students. This webinar, what we are doing is we're touching on the basics of how educators can support undocumented students to go to college. That is what we're doing here today. And my name is Estefania Hermosillo. I am the Community Education Lead at Immigrants Rising. I've been working in the field of college access for undocumented students now for about 4 years. And there's nothing like being able to see that a student who previously thought that they couldn't go to college learn that they actually can. And it's really fulfilling, and it's one of the best really opportunities that I think we have as educators. And Rocio?
Thank you, Stefania. Hi, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. My name is Rocio Preciado, and I'm the Community Education and High School Engagement Manager at Immigrants Rising. And it's been a really great opportunity for me to have the opportunity to work with undocumented students, the undocumented community since 2011, and really thinking about what my own personal experience was as an undocumented student back in 2009. And how it might be similar and even how it might be different as well for students today, especially students in high school who are battling with a lot of questions. And it has been a strong testament in my own personal life to be able to see how educators have a huge impact in the lives of undocumented students, their ability to see what's possible for them, as well as for students to be able to know what are the resources that they're able to access in their pursuit of college, as well as the opportunities that are available for them post-college.
Yes. And now I want to just tell you all a little bit about Immigrants Rising. Some of you have probably heard about us before, but some of you have not. I mean, we saw that this presentation and the link for people and educators across the state of California to register spread far and wide. So let me tell you about Immigrants Rising. So we help undocumented young people pursue education and careers to create new, brighter futures for them, their families, and their communities. And I still remember the first time that I heard about Immigrants Rising. There was a student that was active at an organization back in the Central Valley where I went to school in Turlock. And he was active at an organization called MECHA, where they did student activism. And I had shared that I was undocumented. And then he would say, you need to check out Immigrants Rising. You need to check out Immigrants Rising. And I was like, okay. And then I got an email from an educator about Immigrants Rising. And then I got another email from another educator about Immigrants Rising. So I was like, okay, after 3 times, maybe I should check this out. And well, here I am working at Immigrants Rising. So it's an amazing organization. We work to, again, support undocumented students, empower undocumented youth in career and education. Here we see the bright faces of the people who really make up our organization. And what is it that we're going to be, I want to now tell you where we are today. So just for a little bit of context, today you're in the first webinar of our educator webinar series. So for the entire year, 2019 and then into 2020, we're going to have a series of webinars that go deeper into the ways that we can really support undocumented youth. And today you're at the first one. It's the basics. And you can see that then we have another webinar that's going to go deeper into financial aid, and then another one that's going to go deeper into legal solutions in December. And then we're going to go into 2020 and then have more topics about leadership for undocumented youth, emotional and mental well-being, protecting data, and then paid opportunities regardless of immigration status. We've got a lot of questions from all of you. And in this webinar, again, we're covering the basics of everything, of most of this. And there might be questions that we don't answer for you. If you have something really, really urgent that we don't answer, we'll give you our contact information and you can reach us. And if you could make note of the webinars that you see here and then plan to attend those so that you get your questions more fully answered.
And one of the reasons why we are launching this webinar series is because we believe that in order to support undocumented students today, it is important to be able to offer a holistic support system for students. One of the things that I came across being an undocumented student back in 2009 was, who is my support network out in my community, and who can I go to in moments when I'm losing hope and inspiration and motivation? I also came across the question of, am I going to always be undocumented? And is this going to be my struggle here in the States? The other question that came up for me was, why should I go to college and pursue an education if I'm not sure whether I'll be able to make a living and whether my time and investment will actually be worth it? There also came questions to me, and I wanted to know, is it safe for me to share and access the resources that are available out there for me when I wanted to protect the safety of myself and my family? This is why we want to encourage you all to be active participants in this webinar. There's going to be a lot to be able to learn for you all to be able to offer a holistic support to all of those students.
And at the very end of this series, you actually will have an opportunity to receive an UndocuAlly Certificate. So the requirement to receive the certificate is that you complete 5 of the 7 webinars. And we're also going to follow up with evaluations, because we want to hear from you about what really worked and what else would you like to see in these kinds of sessions. And so that you participate in that basic way by evaluating and really providing feedback. And just be someone who's committed to providing support for undocumented students. Obviously you're here, but you could just express your commitment in so many ways, and we don't have a measure for what that would look like, but definitely that's one of the requirements that you could carry in your heart. And what else I would like to, the other thing I'd like to say is we are recording the webinar, and we won't be sharing the recordings of the webinars just yet. We are going to be doing some remodeling of our website, etc. And at some point in the future, these webinars can go online in our website, but that's going to be in the future, and it won't be now. So if you want to get this information now, this hour that we have here really is the best time. I know that typically we engage with webinars in for myself, I could tune out easily. Well, we're asking that in this session it almost be like a conversation, that you use the chat box, that you use the Q&A, that you use the kind of ways for us to engage, because what we're doing is we wanted to be able to access as many educators as possible across California. And we're using online tools like these so that we do that. I can't bear to hear another student tell me that they didn't know that they could go to college. And I hear that from students, that they didn't know, and that they didn't know about certain information. And now we're not here to save, and we are here to have what we need so that we have every student who is actually eligible for a lot of different resources participate and qualify and take the resources they're eligible for. So educators we all are definitely key for the student success. And so we're in this together from now until many, many more years, but for now in this series. So for today specifically, we're going to be creating some context of what really we're here for. What is the call to action for us? The national and state policy updates. Why undocumented students can go to college, pay for college, receive financial aid, the safety of parents and students, and then resources that are really relevant for these topics. And again, we're doing a brief overview. So be taking notes, be participating, asking questions. All right. Well, 98,000 undocumented students graduate from high school every year. There was a report that was recently published by the Migration Policy Institute, and this is the number that they came out with. Previously, it was thought that it was 65,000. So 98,000, just an incredible number. Many factors could have contributed to that, including knowing that, hey, I can actually have an education. I can pursue something beyond, in my career. So people had some more motivation to graduate. Those are some of the factors that were named. Out of the people who graduate from a high school in the United States, 30% are from California and about 19% are from Texas. And so we have a big proportion of people that are graduating from California and Texas. And we happen to be in California, which is a great place to be in. We have a lot to say about what happens in the rest of the country. And so it really is us who get to shape a lot of the future of not only the undocumented students here in California, but in other states that are looking to us, to what we do and how we provide leadership. So that's really, really important for us to know. And then lastly, just for context, so what is known is that both unauthorized and legally present students from similar socioeconomic backgrounds have similar graduation rates, right? And similar, kind of like face similar situations. Their legal status, the difference in legal status is what has the largest impact on college enrollment. And so legal status is the thing that determines whether someone's going to actually go and apply and enroll into college. Why would that be? Well, people's, experience. I'm not, like Rocio was saying, I'm not even going to qualify. Why try? Why bother? Many situations. I didn't know that I qualified. Again, in California, where we've had the California Dream Act since 2011, 2012, that was 7 years ago. I still have students who think that they don't qualify. I still find students who think they don't qualify, who haven't heard of AB 540, which passed in 2001. So there's just, and I know this because when I was in high school and I was living, just as a student, as a high school student, the world was small. It was my mom, my dad, my stepdad, my siblings, soccer practice, and church, and it was small. And a lot of the things that I know now, I had no sense of back then. And so for students, it's just so important that we give as much and as repetitive information about the accessibility of college. Really, really, really important. So what are students actually eligible for? So if you look at this diagram, what people are eligible for, I'm gonna do this little spotlight. So in this background, you see that there are undocumented students, right? This would be all of the undocumented students. And students are eligible for DACA, or some undocumented youth are eligible for DACA. Some are eligible for in-state tuition and financial aid in California, and some are not eligible for any of this, for DACA or in-state tuition and financial aid in California. Others are eligible for all of this, DACA and in-state tuition and financial aid. And some are eligible for one or the other. In this webinar, we'll go over the eligibility criteria, at least for the in-state tuition and financial aid, so that you could kind of see that eligibility is different than the eligibility for DACA, which is what would have some people qualify for this and not for this, and some not qualify for any of it. Anything you need to add?
No, and this diagram really speaks to the need to understand the different diversity and people's experience when it comes to immigration status or college access questions and specific things that might come up for different students. I mean, really highlighting that the experience of one student is not the same for all students. And there's one question that asks whether the graphic in this visual is relevant to California. This is specifically relevant to California. Yet again, there are some states that do have similar in-state tuition laws that also have some state-based financial aid available, which varies by state, and DACA applicable at the federal level. Yet again, this specific diagram is relevant to the laws and policies that have been passed here in California and are available for students in California.
Yeah, and in our next financial aid webinar, we'll do an overview of the states that offer financial aid and then the ones that offer in-state tuition. But in California, for sure, this is offered. Despite this political climate, every day undocumented young people show resilience and innovation. Every single day. I mean, we undocumented youth are the population that really has advocated for themselves with the support of so many others to be able to win legislations like California Dream Act, DACA. The fact that we could present to you so much information is the advocacy of undocumented youth. I get to work with undocumented students and see the future seeking, the opportunity, the possibility in so many. And so, we want to make sure that when we're speaking of undocumented students, we're still speaking to the strength and the resilience and the innovation, right? No matter what. And now let's go ahead and learn about some of the political and like policies and legislations. And for that, we'll have Rocio.
And one of the often questions that comes up amongst students and educators, at least for me when I was a student, the very first thing that came to mind was, my parents are undocumented, I'm undocumented. At the time, I was in love with a guy that was undocumented as well. The first thing that came to mind was, I am going to die undocumented. And part of those things that came up for me came from my lack of understanding as a high school student in terms of how does the immigration system work here in this country. One of the things that Estefania mentioned was the advocacy and the work that happens within communities in order to advocate for policies and legislation that work in favor for the community. One of those programs was Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, which was passed in 2012 with the intention of offering a temporary, again, the intention of offering a temporary solution for students who were graduating from college, who were undocumented, and who wanted to know, how will I now that I'm graduating college be able to make a living? There was an understanding that this program was going to be a temporary effort to alleviate some of those urgent concerns that were coming up for us as students back in 2012 when Deferred Action was announced. Some of you, and now more than ever, are coming across students who unfortunately are not able to apply for DACA, even if they would have met eligibility requirements. Now, what does that mean? That means that students, young people who were able to apply for DACA when the program was available and open for initial applications, people were receiving, and some still have, a work authorization, protection from deportation, access to a federal ID, such as a driver's license, social security number, Medi-Cal, and other benefits. Today, we have come across the challenge and the uncertainty of what will happen with DACA, with a program that has given young people access to a work authorization. And on June 28, 2019, the Supreme Court announced that they are going to be hearing the case on DACA to determine the future of the program. Now, this hearing will happen on November 12th. So as of now, nothing has changed. What does nothing has changed mean? That means that people who currently have DACA and who applied for DACA are able to renew their DACA application, which will still give them access to the work authorization. Their social security number is the social security number that they're going to be able to keep for themselves. It is not a number that expires. So those who were able to benefit from DACA will still be able to keep their social security numbers Yet again, they are encouraged to renew their DACA in order to keep their work authorization valid, as well as a protection from deportation. Now, those who have never applied for DACA, even if they meet DACA eligibilities but never apply, cannot apply to the program. There are a lot of organizations that are offering and are opening up scholarships to be able to pay for students' DACA renewals. One of the organizations that has resources on DACA renewals is United We Dream. And one of the important things to keep in mind is that there was a lot of advocacy that led to this program being in place. It was led by undocumented young leaders who pushed the Obama administration to make this program possible and have it happen. And also a reminder that this was not meant to be a permanent solution to the need of offering a sense of safety and opening more opportunities to undocumented students here in this country. Now, if you know of any students in your high school who might be DACA, who have DACA, there is a website, renewmydaca.com, that will give and will guide students with more information about their ability to renew their DACA application and also provide them with resources. Now, during this webinar, a lot of the information that we're going to be covering will also be resources and opportunities that are available for people despite DACA status. Again, DACA does not having DACA does not mean that someone will not be able to access college. So this is one of the things that we want to make a distinction. One of the questions that came up is how often does DACA need to be renewed? So on the renewmydaca.com, it gives folks a recommendation as to when they're able to renew the DACA. One of the things that we encourage folks is to, every time they renew their DACA, they're able to get their work authorization for 2 additional years. We have encountered people who renew their DACA 1 year within the renewal in order to get it for another 2 years. Again, there are and it can be a lot of financial constraints, which is why there are a lot of organizations who are finding and are creating scholarships opportunities to support folks with the renewal. And this website will give a student a sense of when and if they're able to renew their DACA based on any changes to their situation or their circumstance. I had mentioned earlier how I had a very small understanding of the immigration system here in the United States. And I thought, I am going to die undocumented. I don't see how my family will be able to petition for me or how I will ever be able to legalize my status. It was when I was in my senior year of high school when I received a phone conversation. I received a phone call from my mom. I was on the bus. I had just gotten off BART and I was on my way to our apartment in Hayward right after school. I received a phone conversation and it's my mom. And she says, Rocio, you need to come to the police department because something happened to your sister, and so we have to go to the police department. I show up to the police department. There's my mom, my dad, my sister, myself, and my baby sister. And we get to hear what had happened. And there was one educator that my sister felt very comfortable and able to trust in disclosing an incident that had to be reported to the police. We had no idea what that meant. The only thing that my mom said was it was a mistake for us to come to this country. If we hadn't come to this country, we wouldn't have had to encounter this difficulty, this situation. Years later, I had the opportunity to intern at an asylum office. And that's where I learned that because that educator had contacted the police and because there was a police report available, my family was able to apply for the U visa, which then gave them a legal permanent residency. And it was really the impact that an educator had in being an ear and a resource to my sister, while also being able to find the right legal support to identify whether there were any potential immigration remedies for us. One of the resources that we want to offer you as an educator is our immigration legal intake service. Our immigration legal intake service does just that. It evaluates whether a student or a person is eligible for any potential immigration remedy that can lead to something more permanent. So we encourage you all to check out our legal intake service and be able to refer students to getting the answer that they need in terms of, will I ever be able to legalize my status? So this is a one initial first stop that you can share with students and offer to the students with you.
And now, any questions? Thank you, Rocio, for sharing that with us, and thank you for sharing it with the people in this webinar. Yeah, the difference of this kind of service and that knowing that you can qualify for this makes. Yeah. Anybody have any questions?
And one of the questions that we have is, can you repeat what the intake service provides? Yes. So the intake provides an in-depth analysis. It's a questionnaire. It is free. It is anonymous, confidential, and it provides an assessment of whether someone may be eligible for an immigration remedy. So people are asked questions regarding their immigration status, different life situations, circumstances, and our team provides a response in approximately 2 to 3 weeks in terms of any potential immigration remedies that the person submitting the application, the questionnaire, the legal intake might be eligible for.
Great, and then the next question is perfect because it's what is the difference between California DREAM Act and DACA, and we're exactly going to go into the California DREAM Act just now. So, yes?
And before that, there is one question which I think is also very important. So, is the intake available in Spanish? So, very great question. So, actually, our intake is not available in Spanish. Okay, one of the things that you can do as an educator, if you know that there's a student who does not speak English, will benefit from the legal intake service, what you can do is the student can fill out the questionnaire in Spanish. What that will mean is that you as an educator would offer some support in interpreting the questions. They're able to answer the intake in Spanish. Our team will then do a follow-up phone conversation with the person submitting the intake and being able to give them and walk them through the possible immigration remedies based on their responses. So again, it is not available in Spanish, and there is an opportunity to be able to support students who don't speak English to guide them through the questions and encourage them to fill out the form in Spanish, and our legal team will follow up with them in a phone conversation.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. So now let's go ahead and go over state educational policies that focus on relevant resources. To start us off, I want to point you to one of the Immigrants Rising resources. It's our California DREAM Act checklist. So we have this online resource. If you go on our website, immigrantsrising.org, and then go on our resources page, the California DREAM Act checklist is really easy to follow. and check by check, a student and a counselor, an educator can fill it out to ensure that a documented student is successfully filling out the California DREAM Act. So what is the difference between California DREAM Act and DACA? So DACA has to do, as we mentioned earlier, with our ability to reside in the United States with how would you say it? Our ability to reside in the United States with protection from deportation. Basically. California DREAM Act has to do with education, with being eligible to qualify for financial aid, for money to go to school. It doesn't have to do with the ability to reside in the United States with legal protection. DACA is federal, California DREAM Act is state. It's only in California. So there are some policies that are in place, and if you qualify for this, you're eligible for the California DREAM Act. And this is the SB 68. Previously, it was the AB 540, and AB 540 passed in 2001, but SB 68 passed more recently, and it expanded who was eligible for the California DREAM Act and for in-state tuition. So I'm only going to touch on SB 68 because SB 68 really encompasses AB 540 as well. Okay, this is the first overview. Again, in our next webinar, we'll go more in depth. We'll be able to answer questions. If you want to screenshot this, go ahead. We also have some resources on our website. So just a brief overview. What has you be eligible for the California DREAM Act and for in-state tuition? 3 full-time years of attendance in a California high school or adult school, or up to 2 years in community college or the Department of Corrections and Rehab, or 3 years of high school coursework, and that and is really, really, really important. 3 years of high school coursework and 3 years of total attendance in a California elementary or secondary school or any combination of these. And then this is the first part of the eligibility. The second part is to meet the criteria, graduated from a California high school, obtained a GED in California, or obtained an associate's degree from a California community college, or fulfilled the minimum transfer requirements for university. This legislation, SB 68, really opens the doors for new, like people that came during their junior or senior year to California and to a California high school, people that are going to adult school and have a desire to continue their education. Why? Because now adult school is part of the eligibility. You know, a GED but now attaining an associate's is part of the eligibility. Before it was only a GED and a California high school degree. So it really does open the doors. You as an educator don't have to know this by heart. You can, but you don't have to. You can always turn to our in-state tuition tool. It is a free tool that is online on in our website. Everything here, as you can see, is also linked. And you put in your zip code. You put in just basic email address and fill in, okay, this is how much time I've been in the California high school. This is how much time I've been in, adult school. This is how many units I've had. And at the end of it, it'll tell you, hey, you're eligible for in-state tuition, or it'll say, keep going. This is what's missing. At the moment, this tool is also only in English. It's not available in Spanish. So if working with a Spanish or a Mandarin or a different speaker from a different language, it's going to be really important to know that you're going to have to walk side by side with them to be able to complete this tool. But it's really, really good resource. Now, why is this eligibility so important? The one that I just touched on, because this is the eligibility for California DREAM Act. So when you're eligible for the criteria that I just touched on, you're not only eligible for in-state tuition, so now the state is going to charge you like a state student, which is way less than an out-of-state or international student. Not only that, the state will also provide financial aid through the California DREAM Act. So as you see here, California Dream Act allows AB 540, AB 2000, and SB 68 eligible undocumented students to benefit from university scholarships, financial aid from the state government. What does that financial aid look like? What does that mean? By the way, there's some research done on high school educators, and financial aid is pretty complicated to understand. It's not easy. It sometimes it's like, well, there's no money out there, school's really expensive, and it's not easy to understand who's eligible for what. So we broke it down as to what filling out the California Dream Act is doing. So the California Dream Act, what's actually happening is it's having you see, are you eligible for any of these, for state aid, for UC grants, for CSU grants, for college, community college promise grants, for the EOPS, for the services, for California state aid, for loans, for private loans, work study. When you fill out the California Dream Act, it's like one-stop shop that when you submit that application, it'll funnel into all these other grants and scholarship options, like private scholarships or institutional aid. And so a student then receives a financial aid packet after having submitted. What you could see here really clearly is if you're eligible for AB 540 and SB 68, there's a lot of yeses. A lot of yeses of what you're eligible for. If you're not eligible for AB 540 or SB 68, there's a lot of no's. Only one yes, private scholarships. So it's a stark difference between what people qualify for when eligible for AB 540 and SB 68 and when not eligible. As educators, really important to work with students to have them be eligible for AB 540 or SB 68 if they're not, such that then that student really does have an immense opportunity. I mean, it could be the difference between, UC Davis costing, $60,000 for a day, like for a semester or a year longs of attendance, compared to costing in-state rate, which is $13,000 plus money to pay for it. So it's a very big difference.
And the other thing that I want to highlight is that this resource that is available through the California Dream Act is a law, and it is available here in California. One of the reasons why you're going to see that there are some no's in the eligibility is because this opens up access for state financial aid, not federal aid available. Yet again, there are a lot of different opportunities to be able to cover that difference. Which is why it's also important to encourage students who you might be a little bit uncertain about whether they're eligible for 8540 or SB 68 to use the in-state tuition qualifier, which will walk students with what are the different opportunities available for you when it comes to your education, paying for college, and what are some of the steps that you can take. What is an action plan that you can take in order to meet that eligibility and eventually be able to get access to state financial aid here in California?
Correct. And then what I'll just say next is we have an awesome resource again on our website that just depicts the difference between all of these, AB 540, AB 2000, SB 68, and then the California Dream Act. If you're someone who's interested in going through what each of these legislations are and the differences between them. What you can see here, in-state tuition are the first three, California Dream Act, AB 130, AB 131. The thing how I know this is California Dream Act means money to go to college, like physically getting, like actually getting money to pay for school if I'm eligible. In-state tuition is paying the in-state rate, right? And so that's kind of how I can tell you, I remember the difference. Now, in our next webinar, we'll go more in depth into what all of this is as well. Now we're going to touch on scholarships, and this is an amazing opportunity for students to be able to apply for scholarships and get money to go to school, including students who do not qualify for what we just talked about for 8540 or 68.
Yes, so we want to encourage every student to apply for scholarships. One of the fellows who actually participated in the programming once had an educator, and this teacher asked him, how bad do you want to go to college? And he said, I really want to go to college. college. His biggest challenge was being able to pay for college back in 2009 when there was no financial aid available for undocumented students. And the educator's response was, okay, so for my class, you are going to have to submit 10 scholarships in order to get an A. You will have to submit 9 scholarships to get a B, 8 scholarships to get a C, and 7 scholarships, and at least 7 scholarships if you want to pass my class. This fellow was more concerned about getting a passing grade and passing his class than the scholarships themselves. All of that experience allowed him to create a system of completing scholarships. And by the end of the year, he had applied to so many scholarships, thanks to the motivation and the system that this educator has set in place for him, that he was able to pay all of his 4 years at UC Davis just through scholarships. And that is one of the things that we want to encourage educators who are working closely with students on a daily basis, is informing undocumented students in terms of the different scholarships that are available to them, being able to connect them with the scholarship lists that are available and that can enable students to create a scholarship culture within high schools. There was also a student that I met once who applied for a scholarship. She had applied to so many scholarships that she said, you know what, there's this other scholarship and it's only going to give me $800. It's not that much compared to the other scholarships that I've already received. She ended up submitting the application anyways, and she heard back. And they said to her, congratulations, you've been awarded the scholarship. But not only has she been awarded the first place, she had been awarded the second and the third place. Why? Because she was the only student who had actually applied to this scholarship. We want to make sure that educators are encouraging students to apply to scholarships because there are many people out there who are open and willing to offer that support. And it's a matter of being able to create and facilitate a process for students. We do have scholarships, a scholarship list available on our website, and we also have some guides that students can use in order to write down and begin thinking about those scholarships and begin in the writing process for the scholarships to be able to receive some of that financial support. One of the scholarships that is out there is the Dreams.US scholarship, and this scholarship offers up to $29,000. And for those who recently graduate from high school and those who graduate from community college are able to receive $4,500 up to $4,500 towards a bachelor's degree. And really promoting these opportunities for students, as well as the database that we have available. So there are many different databases that are available for students to be able to access those scholarships. And the biggest message is for students to apply. And for educators, the question is your high school creating a scholarship culture that is accessible for students and that will foster students' ability to be able to actually submit those applications for scholarships that are available out there.
Great. And the next thing is that when the student is considering like what college to go to, that these are some of the questions that a student can ask that college or university to assess whether they are a place that is, you know, working really closely with undocumented students. Do they have a center? Are they providing funds? Do they have DACA renewal fees, scholarships specific to that school, or opportunities for students to live on campus?
And this year, in the last 2 years, Immigrants Rising actually created an initiative where they are funding 36 community colleges and universities across California in order to support the implementation of services and programming to support undocumented students in college. And it is one of the things that we want to encourage students and educators to ask all those colleges and universities in order to reassure the student that yes, in fact, colleges and universities are doing the work from their end in order to receive students and continue to offer that support once they're in their higher education, once they're in higher education.
Great. And then we do have a few questions, like are the scholarships applicable to only California students or students outside of California? The database that we shared is a national database, so those scholarships are applicable to students across the country. Both of the scholarship lists, what we shared is national. Some of like the ones that are hyperlinked, some of those might be only state or even local, but everything else from our database and from dream.us is national. Really great questions. All right, so now we're gonna jump into creating a safe space. So it's really, really important as people are considering, as educators work with students, the issue of safety consistently comes up, and we have seen it, hyper up a lot with this administration that we have right now. So we're gonna talk on when it comes to educational access, what are the protections for undocumented students? How students and families are protected? Well, how they can protect colleges and how the colleges and high schools can protect undocumented students is limit the sharing of student information with federal immigration authorities, actually create protocols that restrict agents to access schools, prohibit campus security from collaborating with federal immigration authorities for the purposes of enforcement, provide resources and information for immigrant students and their families. Like I remember when I was at UC Davis and going to school there, we had a meeting once, and like the sheriff came to our meeting and expressed that, we could be there and there was no harm, but they were there to serve students, and that was what they were there for primarily. And that was really, really great to see, at least them stating that, by attending this meeting. High schools can also do things like that, or can also just between the administrators, the student, the educators, begin to have action plans for what to do in case something happens, in case immigration is nearby, and also proactively implement policies, again, that prohibit access to school and to limit the sharing of information.
And if you have any questions regarding any potential models, we are going to be having a webinar series that will talk about student safety and data protection. So we encourage you to join that webinar where we're going to go more in detail as to what are some of the potential models and some of the things that educators can do and schools can do.
And I mentioned FERPA, but what exactly is FERPA? Well, FERPA protects the privacy of student records in kindergarten through 12th grade, colleges and universities. It requires prior consent before disclosing that information to third parties. Third parties include parents, unless the child is under 18, educators, advisors, scholarship providers, anyone else not specifically named. And so you can understand how FERPA applies to your school, to your organization. We actually have a guide attached to the end of this session on AB 699, guidance for kindergarten through 12th grade, and it details a little bit more about how FERPA protects folks. But essentially, anything that's filed on California DREAM Act, anything that's filed on this information and records is not to be shared with anybody else without prior consent. Mixed family households, there are a lot of citizen and legal permanent students with undocumented parents who are eligible for FAFSA. So FERPA protects, the protections also apply for FAFSA, and parents should not be putting in a social security number that is not their own, also not an individual tax identification number. If it's asked to put in a social security number, entering 0000 would be, or all the zeros that are there would be sufficient. And then at the very end of the FAFSA applications, it's designed to do things only online, but and then anybody who has like undocumented parents would need to actually print out the parent signature page and mail it in. Do not use the online ID. And that was really quick regarding just some basics regarding applications and college applications. So we're now going to go into earning a living. So folks being able to earn a living in the United States despite their, like, independent of their immigration status and what the opportunities are out there.
Correct. And I had mentioned earlier how one of my biggest concerns was, how am I going to be able to make a living and actually utilize my degree? Given it was 2009, I was about to go to college. 2010, I was still undocumented. 2011, I was still undocumented. My biggest question was, how will I be able to make a living? And will some of my relatives be right that all of my work was not going to be worth it because I would not be able to work or make a living here in this country? We have seen many, and now we're in a moment in which we want to make sure that our community is elevated. We are, as an organization, offering grants for entrepreneurs. Why? Because people are able to start a business despite their immigration status. And we see in this quote by Mark Lane, entrepreneurship is freedom and creativity. It's being proud of where I come from. It's giving the next generation a better change. After graduating UC Santa Cruz, and while still being undocumented, I had the opportunity to work as an independent contractor, as a consultant. Now, some of the policies that have made this possible and has made it possible for many members of our community is a law in California that was passed in 2014, SB 1159, that allows people in California who have an IT number and individual tax identification number, often used to be able to file taxes, the opportunity to apply for a professional license despite immigration status. Currently, there are 10 different states that offer this opportunity. Now, what does this do for our community? So this allows our members of our community who maybe have received and have already gotten their law degree, or any other type of professional license, such as any technical schools that might require some sort of professional license. It allows people to be able to apply for these professional licenses, that it can also open up the opportunity for them to be able to apply and have their own business. This is available in many different professions and in many different careers. And it is an opportunity that is available for people despite immigration status. And it's one of the opportunities that is opening up for people who maybe were never eligible for DACA and are still are open to trying to find ways to utilize their degrees and continuing their education. We do have a Life After College guide for undocumented students, and this guide was first started before DACA was even in place, for the same reasons. Many people were wondering, what are the opportunities despite immigration status? And we do have a guide that talks more about paid opportunities while in school, paid opportunities after school, and paid opportunities that are available after graduating college and making a living. We are going to be having a webinar that will talk about and really focus on paid opportunities regardless of immigration status. So we also encourage you to stay tuned for that one webinar that will be coming up. And there are models that currently exist within districts that are offering opportunities to their high school students, models that are in place within colleges and universities. And we do have a list of social entrepreneurs who have been able to benefit from some of our Immigrants Rising grants for them to be able to launch their businesses despite their immigration status.
Yeah. So it's very important to be able to see what is it that is possible. We had somebody ask if this applied to nursing. So yes, nurses could get their license as nurses. Again, that's different than being able to then be employed as a nurse. Like to be able to practice nursing, it would require probably a couple of different things to consider. So to practice as a nurse, one of the things I recommend, there's an organization, Pre-Health Dreamers. So Pre-Health Dreamers, my colleague will see if we can put that on our chat box, is an organization to check out all students that are undocumented that are committed to getting certified and as doctors, dentists, like in the health arena. And so it's a really great group of people to be connected with. And we're now at that moment where we're just going to share with you a lot of different resources that you can access. We have an Inclusivity Poster. We recently launched this poster, and this is something that you can have in your physical space so that your students can see that you're someone who supports undocumented students. In here, you can see that you can put local organizations with resources for immigrant students, and then rapid response network, rapid response number. It's a way that a student passing by can see your support and some good information that they can take with them or take a screenshot of at their own time. We also have this poster, Undocumented, You're Not Alone. We're in this together. This, again, is just creating an environment where undocumented students know they're welcome and can understand that they belong to the physical, the space, essentially, and begin to not taboo the subject of being undocumented. And while today's times, it really makes sense that people are more afraid and not necessarily expressing that they're undocumented, as educators, we can really take initiative to display our support, right? And this is one of the ways that you can do that. I want to remind you about our immigration legal intake service. It's an online service. It's on our website. You can see now the site right here, immigrantsrising.org/legal intake. Really easy to use, confidential and anonymous for any student to be able to participate in that service and then receive a memo that lets them know if they're eligible for any immigration remedies. We also have an educational resource binder. A lot of the resources that I touched on is like the visuals, the checklist, the knowing differences, those kind of screenshots of key guides are in this binder. This binder, you can find it on our website as well under our resources. And you could either print it, like you could get the PDF version for free and print that, or you can purchase one that comes with, it doesn't come in a binder put together, but it comes with the tabs and every single resource and really great high quality paper. We're not making revenue off that, we just created a system so that an educator can easily print it and have it shipped to them if that's something they wanted to do. One of the best resources is the top 10 ways to support undocumented students, engaging with an open mind, learning about policies and legislation. We're definitely using this to frame a lot of what we're doing in our webinar series to make sure that you're an educator who has everything you need to support students whenever they're in your office or in your meeting or come to you for one-on-one support. Here are the policies, the K through 12, this is from the California Attorney General, guidance and model policies to assist schools in responding to immigration issues. Again, the California In-State Tuition Qualifier. And then one of my favorite guides is this quick guide to college access because it automatically, it has every kind of like the basics an educator needs. And we will share the presentation. We won't share the recording, but we will share the presentation with you all. Let me remind you, we are in the first webinar of a series. And so next webinar is going to be on November 20th, same time at 4 p.m. And it's going to be financial aid for undocumented students, more in-depth look at what undocumented students are actually eligible for when they're applying for the California DREAM Act, and if they're not eligible, what they can qualify for. So that's going to be the next one. You can put it on your calendar. We will send an email to you letting you know about this and the rest of the dates for the rest of the webinars. So with that, if you need to contact us, Estefania at immigrantsrising.org, and then Rocio at immigrantsrising.org as well. I'm gonna leave time for people to ask questions while I display this awesome little visual where you could actually just point your phone. If you have a phone, you just point it to the QR code and you would fill it out. You could fill out the evaluation right there, or go to this hyperlink and fill out the evaluation right there. And other than that, we're here to answer questions until we've answered them all. So are there any more questions? It says, are there scholarships available? Yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. If not, we are good. Just fill out the evaluation so we know what you're thinking. Great. All right, we gotta thank you so much. You're welcome. Great. Yes, all upcoming webinars are going to start at 4 p.m. The same time for the dates that I displayed. Yeah.
And like Estefania mentioned, we did get the questions that you all submitted upon the registration of this first webinar. So we are keeping some of those questions for the development of the upcoming webinars for you all to get a full comprehensive information.
Awesome. Thank you, Mills High School in Millbrae. Great. Great, great, great. Shout out. All right. Well, we are good. So thank you all. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you. And keep us posted as you make a difference for your students.